Good afternoon, World Wide Web. Happy Sunday. Big day in the stock market tomorrow, especially for AMC theaters. What will become of this news? Will we have a short squeeze? Will we boom upwards? Will it fall back down to $4? There's a lot of media saying a lot of things. Everything from this is delayed to this is canceled to they're not going to merge to they're not going to merge yet. And I want to read his ruling as quickly as possible. I'm going to do this as a speed reading service. James, I'm your favorite ticker picker, and let's hope I can read through this quickly. It is a 60-page ruling by Judge Zern, and it also tells a little bit of the history about some of the dirty business of AMC. I'm just going to start reading really quick, and you can just relax, do what you do, and I'll tell you the story. Common stockholders of AMC Entertainment Holdings, AMC, the company, brought direct claims on behalf of the putative class of common stockholders. The plaintiffs sought injunctive relief to stop the company from holding a special meeting at which the common stockholders, together with holders of fractional units of a blank check preferred stock, would vote upon two charter amendments. The First Amendment would authorize more common stock, which would trigger the conversion of those fractional units into shares of common stock. The second would effectively reverse stock split. Every one of these fractional units was getting a full vote, FYI. The amendments were certain to pass because AMC Board of Directors had used its blank check authority to issue units representing fractional shares of a preferred stock and imbued those units with dispositive voting power. Those units have mirrored voting feature under which any uninstructed units vote in proportion to the instructed units. The mirrored voting feature enables the preferred units to dictate the outcome of any vote in which the common shares and the preferred shares would vote together. During the lead-up of the special meeting, the board sold a large block of preferred units to an institutional investor who promised to vote, this must be Interior Capital, who promised to vote in favor of the amendments. That promise, together with the mirrored voting feature, ensured the amendment's approval by a combined vote of the preferred and the common shares. So the judge didn't like the dirty play. The plaintiffs asserted two claims on behalf of the common stockholders. First, they contended members of the board breached their fiduciary duties by issuing and weaponizing the preferred units, therefore interfering with the common stockholders' voting rights. Second, they contended AMC was statutory required to provide the common stockholders with a class vote on the creation of the preferred units and failed to do so. So they weren't even allowed to make these preferred units, or at least that's what the plaintiffs said. The plaintiffs sought an expedited hearing on the preliminary injunction that would prevent the special meeting from taking place until after the court entered judgment on the plaintiffs' claims. Before the preliminary injunction hearing, the plaintiffs negotiated a settlement with the defendants on behalf of the class of common stockholders the plaintiffs purport to represent. The settlement consideration consists of additional shares of common stock awarded to the current common shareholders. In addition, in return, the plaintiffs' defendants suggest the class of common stockholders should release claims that they hold as common stockholders, as well as any claims they may hold as owners of preferred units. Under Delaware law, the court must review all class action settlements to ensure that, number one, the representative plaintiffs negotiated a deal for the class that falls within a range of reasonable results that a disinterested person could accept, and two, the representatives plaintiffs satisfy the requirements of the due process such that the settlement can bind absent class members to the deal of representative plaintiffs negotiated. This presentation of a settlement involves a series of prescribed steps designed to permit briefing by the parties in support of the settlement and to provide notice to stockholders so they can object. AMC's stockholder base is extraordinary. It includes a great number of human owners who care about their stock ownership and the company. Many of them are connected to each other online. When notice went out to AMC stockholders, the reaction was unprecedented. The court received more than 3,500 communications from approximately 2,850 purported stockholders. To ensure that the stockholder submissions received careful review, the court appointed a special master to review them and make recommendations. After completing her review, the special master filed a report recommending how the court should weigh the objections against the terms of the proposed settlement. The objecting stockholders and parties received the opportunity to take exception to that report. Then the court held a hearing where the parties and objectors presented their positions on the proposed settlement. At this juncture, the court's only task is to approve or reject the proposed settlement. The focus of the settlement on the claims presented in the case. The court cannot address issues that do not pertain to the fairness of the settlement. Such issues raised by AMC stockholders include theories about synthetic shares, Wall Street corruption, dark pool trading, insider trading, and RICO violations, and a request for a share count. The court's role is limited to considering settlement-specific issues like the strength of the plaintiff's claims, the consideration the class would receive, and the scope of the release the class would give in exchange for that consideration. Citing AMC's financial situation, the parties have sought to present their settlement for approval on a compressed time frame, quickly, like I was saying. Even moving quickly, the court must ensure that the proposed settlement is fair and fulfills the principles of due process. To cut to the chase, thank God, and they're not, the settlement cannot be approved or submitted. The release purports to release not only claims associated with the common stock, but also claims associated with preferred interest that common stockholders might also hold. So they're kind of doing it for the AMC holders because they know that we're going to get slayed with another dilution, and this judge is saving us from that peril. And we didn't get a fair vote on this, so he's kind of doing this for the AMC stockholder. The release cannot properly extend to those latter claims because the plaintiffs were not appointed as fiduciaries for the holders of preferred interest and did not bring claims on preferred rights. The plaintiffs only sued on behalf of a putative class of common stockholders and only asserted claims based on voting rights of common stockholders. They can agree to release that encompasses the claims they asserted and claims that the class holds and that arise out of the same factual predicate. The settlement purports to release claims that do not arise out of the same factual predicate as the claims asserted in this action. The factual predicate on which the plaintiff's claims are based depicts the plight of the common stockholder who have been harmed by the issuance and voting power of the preferred units. The factual predicate from the standpoint of the preferred units is the polar opposite. True, the plaintiffs allege a unitary timeline of events that starts from AMC's creation of preferred units and ends with the proposals at the special meeting. But those events affected common stockholders and the preferred units in opposite ways, particularly as to their voting rights and equity in AMC. Yeah, we were getting screwed and they were getting blessed. More fundamentally, the direct claims arising out of preferred interests are pursuant to those interests and can be represented and released only by preferred unit holders. The plaintiffs, as common stockholders representing common stockholder class members, cannot release direct claims appertaining to the preferred units. This is so even if some common stockholders class member happen to hold preferred units. So this is even true if you hold both. Finally, the release of claims arising out of preferred interest is not supported by consideration. Awarding more shares to common stockholders necessarily comes at the expense of preferred units. The settlement consideration harms. Awarding more shares to common stockholders necessarily comes at the expense of preferred units. The settlement consideration harms preferred unit holders. Oh, I don't know about, I guess the settlement that they didn't do seems to have harmed them. I don't know about that. I think this judge got it backwards a little bit, but I like this. The settlement therefore cannot be approved as presented. The settlement therefore cannot be approved as presented. Those are very key words here. It can't be approved as presented. So what does that tell you if you're the people that want the $100 million and you're AMC? It means you go back into another room and you come up with another settlement that can be presented. This decision, nevertheless, takes the additional step of ruling on the various exceptions of the Special Master's report. They are dismissed. The court thanks the Special Master and her team for outstanding work. It can't be approved as presented, right out of the judge's mouth. That tells me that they just need to redo it, represent it, and then they might get it approved. And I don't know, I guess the judge was telling us what he wanted, or what the issue was ahead of that, is we didn't get a fair vote, number one. The dilution of the APE, and then doing it in a fractional way, gave every one of those fractions a vote that was equal to our vote. So 100 APE shares are right now worth one preferred share, but each preferred share carries 100 votes worth of voting power compared to our one share. So every 1/100th does. So technically, I guess there's only 10 million preferred shares out there, and there's a billion when you divide it up by 100. What follows are not formal factual findings, but rather how the court regards the record for purposes of evaluating the purpose of settlement. And then here we go to a lot of legal mumbo jumbo. AMC sells stock to raise capital and seeks to increase its authorized shares of common stock. These are facts about the case. AMC is a movie theater company. The COVID-19 pandemic was disastrous. To stay afloat between the end of 2020 and 2021, AMC sold nearly all of its available common shares in a remarkable connection with retail investors, individuals rather than institutions. By April 2021, approximately 85% of AMC shareholders were retail investors. As of March of 2021, AMC had issued an outstanding 450 million common shares out of a total of 524 million authorized in its certificate of incorporation. So March 5th is issued. Okay, so that means they still had some of their shares that they hadn't issued. To continue to capitalize on the retail demand for AMC stock, AMC board sought to increase the number of authorized shares. On January of 21, the board adopted a resolution proposing to amend AMC's certificate to increase the number of shares by 500,000, and it was rejected at an annual meeting. On March 19th, the company filed a proxy statement through which the board solicited stockholders to support that proposed amendment. Stockholders appeared unsupportive. So on April 27th, the board determined not to seek stockholder approval of the proposed amendment. On May 4th, the board postponed the 2021 annual meeting until July to try to garner stockholder support to amend the certificate. This is why everybody sent one APE, just to try to get them to vote too. The board also amended the company's bylaws to lower the quorum requirement from a majority to 1/3 of the issued and outstanding stock entitled to vote at the meeting. On June 3rd, the company filed a preliminary proxy statement for its then delayed annual meeting. Disclosed the board had approved a proposal to amend the certificate to increase the number of shares by 25 million shares. What the hell? Is that, oh, I'm sorry, 25. Yeah, 25 million shares. What? On June 3rd, the company filed a preliminary proxy statement for the delayed annual meeting, disclosing the board had approved a proposal to amend the certificate to increase the total number of authorized common shares by 25 million shares to 549 million shares, which would be put to the stockholder vote. So they're just trying to do a little one. They just tried to do 25 million shares out of their 500 million. The electorate was on board. No, nobody still wanted to do that. So the AMC shareholder, they wouldn't even let these people issue 25 million shares. This guy's broke and he can't pay his bills. Jesus. On July 6th, AMC announced that it would no longer seek stockholder approval for that proposed amendment and withdrew it from the agenda for the 2021 meeting. So that's when they went out and did APE, and they just completely hosed down the AMC person. Board lowered the quorum necessary for stockholder meeting. The board cited the fact that nearly 85% of AMC stock is held by retail investors. Obtaining a quorum this year has proven challenging. By May 17th, AMC's proxy advisor was suggesting alternative voting structures to AMC and the council to discretionary voting where brokers will vote any uninstructed shares, will management recommendations and proportionate voting, where brokers will vote any unrestricted shares in the same proportion to which their instructed shares were voted. Oh my God. So they amended it so that all 100 of the 1/100th would be able to vote. Oh God. Yeah, so I think this tells the story. AMC creates the apes. We know that story. They gave one share to everyone just to get them on board, or try to get them on board of liking this. A third of all the dilution here that they've done potentially is just freaking giveaways. That just pisses me off. Each share of preferred stock converts to 100 shares of common stock as soon as AMC has enough authorized, but they did have the voting power. And then they were going to make each ape 1-to-1 in the end. Yeah, they're just taking a piss on the AMC investor who wouldn't allow them to dilute this company anymore. They just found another way to do it. They went around us. They screwed us on the vote, and the judge isn't having it. But what is the judge not having it? It's not going to allow this settlement as agreed upon. So what agreement do they need to agree upon to make it acceptable for the judge? The rest of this just appears to be a story of what happened. It's very riveting. I would go check it out. Increase authorized number of shares. Okay. Let's see if the judge has anything else to say in conclusion. Terra also purchased 60 million apes at a price of $34.9 million through an at-the-market offering. And Terra agreed to vote all of its ape holdings in favor of the proposal. Thank you, ape. Jesus Christ. Oh, so they start out selling the preferred shares all to one people who agree to do the vote with them the way they want. When improving the Antera transaction, the AMC board specifically noted that AMC had a good chance to secure approval of the proposals, given that the ape shareholders would likely want to convert their units to common shares. They're getting them to do that, knowing that they would want to get more money and be an arbitrage situation. The next day, AMC announced that it would hold a special meeting within 90 days for stockholders to vote on the proposal. Special meeting on February 7th, AMC issued the APE units called for by the Antera transaction. 2 days later, the company waived the forward purchase agreement's lockup restrictions. Oh boy, Antera is just getting hosed. They are selling. Since the record date for the special meeting was February 8th, Antera could still vote on any apes. Even if they've already sold it, they could still vote on their apes. AMC did not disclose why it waived the lockup. Oh, God, this is so corrupt, you guys. On January 7th, 2023, AMC filed its preliminary proxy statement for the special meeting. I don't know. When the stockholder says no, they just didn't take no for an answer. You know, they just didn't. I don't know. I mean, if we own the company, if the stockholder owns the company, and in this case, the charter of the corporation says we own the company, we have the majority. The shareholder has the majority of this company. It's our vote that should be honored. It's not theirs to finagle around us and then piss on us. I'm kind of mad at AMC right now. More people suing, more people upset, more people screwed, more manipulation. On February 27th, the court entered a stipulated order of expedition and status quo order that permitted AMC to hold its March 14th, 2023 special meeting and tabulate any votes in connection therewith, but prohibited the defendants from amending the AMC certificate of incorporation as a result of any vote of shares at the AMC's March 14th meeting. So they were allowed to have their meeting and their vote, but they weren't allowed to act on it until this court date is done. The latter part of the order blocked the conversion from taking effect until the court could make preliminary ruling on the plaintiff's claims. The court scheduled a preliminary injunction hearing for April 27th. That just got delayed till, 3 weeks ago. On March 2nd, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we can skip past that. I think we're up on that. Reverse split. Only 35% of the 517 million actual outstanding shares of common stock were present and voted at the special meeting. Only 25% of the outstanding common voter, or the AMC holder, voted for the share increase proposal. So 75% of AMC holders did not vote for the increase. And yet we lost the whole thing by like 86%. Due to the mirrored voting feature, all the APE units were present and voted at the special meeting. Everyone was present for that meeting because Antara Capital held every one of their votes counted. Only 62.73 of APEs gave instructions on how to vote. That figure includes 25% of AMCs and 62% of APEs voted. And they voted in favor, obviously. But I hope we're wrapping this up soon, folks. I think the key words are that they're just not going to accept this in its current form. I don't think they can go back in time and unscrew everybody. I don't know, what form would you want them to settle with? You want them to get in a time machine and go back and not do all the evil shit that they did, and then and then just come back and try to settle the case? Very unclear what they want them to do. Oh, here it is. Lifting the status quo order was a condition of the settlement. On April 5th, I found both parties failed to make their case for implementing the proposed settlement before it was approved, and therefore failed to establish a good cause to vacate the stipulated status quo order. Status quo order remains in place. On April 14th, blah, blah, blah. Informed the court both parties had agreed to revised terms that were not conditioned on lifting the status quo order. So they already rewrote it once, and she went off and said no again. Or he did. This is the second time this has happened, and requested a status conference with the court to discuss timing. What do you want, Judge? In the meantime, retail holders had contracted funds and filed away in the case in terms of proposed settlement, which yet to be disclosed, taking this engagement of high unprecedented interest. What does the judge care about how much the high unprecedented interest was? I think the judge wants to get his name or her name in the paper as much as possible. She's made national news. Had she just clacked her gavel or him clacked his gavel, this thing would have been like over with, and we would have never known the judge's name. But now Judge Zern is on everyone's tongue. I think Judge Zern loves this. Mass interest in public sentiment. And how about the law, Why don't you worry about the law? Intervene, special master, common stockholders, will they be granted to review the timely and properly submitted stockholders' objections and letters? Okay, hang on, this might be it. Okay, as well as any oppositions and replies hereto, make recommendations as to whether they should be granted, and to review all timely and properly submitted stockholder objections and letters in support of the proposed settlement that post-date the stockholder notice the proposed settlements in this action, and provide the court with a summary of the submissions and the special master's recommendations as to how the submission should inform the court's decision to approve or deny the proposed settlement. So that's it. The special master needs to finish rounding up how everybody feels about it and submitting it to the court. And I guess AMC needs to round this up and notify everybody really well. And give a little notice maybe, and then come back and ask for this settlement, and maybe then they'll get it. Good Lord. I don't know. I'm trying to read this to y'all. I got a lisp today from trying to read this. Jesus Christ. I'm just flurrying. It's terrible. And the cash proceeds distributed pro rata. The proposed settlement has the practical effect of reallocating the ownership of AMC's equity between the common shareholders of APE and its shareholders If the settlement is approved, the existing common stockholders would own a slightly bigger slice of the AMC pie at the expense of the APE unit holders. What? The proposed settlement thus ameliorates some of the dilution that APE inflicted on the common stock. Without the proposed settlement, the existing common stockholders would own 34% of AMC equity. After the conversion, and the former APE's unit holders would own 65%. Okay, so they'd own like 2/3. With the proposed settlement, the existing common stockholders would own 37% of AMC's equity after the conversion, and APE units would hold 85%. Now, I don't understand that. Those are almost the same numbers. So we would own, the AMCs would own equity and equity. No, they're using the same word. In exchange for this increased slice of ownership, the common holder was released all claims asserting and or relating to allegations in the allegating complaint or the operative statement that relate to the ownership of Okay, so she also doesn't like them getting a bigger cut of this deal. The stipulation attached, she doesn't like the settlement. He doesn't like the settlement. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl. First it said it was a guy. First it said the judge was a girl. Now the judge is a guy again, and I have no idea. Yeah, there's wow. Okay, so she doesn't like their 1-for-7 deal, or he doesn't. He doesn't like them getting a better workout on that, and I don't think he wants the people to get notified better. He wants the Grand Master to get more complaint letters and review them. 2,850 stockholders submitted more than 3,500 communications, many of which were styled as objections, that they were emailed or postmarked between May 1st. Who cares how many people objected? I don't really understand all this. Seems like it's a popularity game for this judge. He joined Izzo's objections. The parties filed briefs in support of the proposed settlement and responded to the objections on June 21st. The special master filed her report. The special master is a woman. And recommendations. The special master's report, plaintiff and 13 putative share stockholders timely filed exceptions to the special master's report by the June 28th deadline. I held the settlement hearing on June 29th. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Analysis. Although Delaware law has traditionally favored voluntary settlement of contested claims, the settlement claims raised in a class action requires certain safeguards to ensure that the interested parties who are before the court only vicariously are not inequitably abrogated. Under the Court of Chancery Rule 23, class action should not be dismissed or compromised without the approval of the court and notice to all members of the class. The court must consider whether the terms of the settlement were fair and reasonable, recognizing that its court generally favors settlement of complicated litigation. When parties have reached negotiated settlement, the litigation enters a new and unusual phase where former adversaries join forces to convince the court that their settlement is fair and appropriate. The settlement's proponents bear the burden of persuasion by a preponderance of the evidence. In most instances, the court is constrained by the absence of a truly adversarial process, since inevitably both sides support the settlement and legally assisted objectors are rare. Typically, the court considers whether to approve a settlement in steps. First, it determines whether it can certify the putative class under Rule 23A and B. If the court certifies a class, it next examines under the notice of the settlement that the parties provided to the class was sufficient to satisfy the requirements of due process. If it finds it was inadequate, it moves on to considering whether the settlement terms fall within the range of being reasonable. If they do, then the court will approve the settlement. So it's not reasonable, or the notice of the settlement. So the notice has to be sufficient to satisfy, and it has to be reasonable. So we're back to notice again. Yeah, I think this is pretty clear. He or she, this Judge Zern, is probably going to rule on this case eventually and allow this to happen. However, they want notice, and they want notice, and they want notice. And I'm sensing this is going to be a red herring, everybody. The release is unsound. Key consideration the approval of the derivative or class action settlement is to ensure that the interests of the represented parties have not fallen victim intentionally or inadvertently to the personal interests of the representative plaintiff and its counsel. The court's involvement arises from the need to ensure absent stockholders were adequately represented and to guard against buyouts of the plaintiffs at the expense of those who they purport to represent. All right, I think we got a good idea here, you guys. This merger thing is probably going to be happening in weeks or months. I don't know when it's going to happen, but AMC needs to do some notification. They probably do need to do some realignment of their plea deal and bring it back in front of this judge and get another ruling from this judge. And I don't know how long this takes, or how long this stock price can stand up where it's at right now, knowing that this is coming again. Because now we're back to knowing that there's going to be an extra billion shares diluted. This price going up right now is because everybody thinks we're going to be at 500 million shares outstanding. We're going to be at $1.5 billion shares. I think inevitably, it seems like they just have to present this back to the judge with a new settlement, and one that includes we're notifying all the shareholders, and here's all the new objections, and we're being transparent, and we've notified and represented everybody, and such a small amount of AMC voters even voted. They probably are wondering whether the rest of them even know, or just doing this to get their name in the paper. But yeah, do we have a short squeeze in motion? There's going to be a lot of people pooping their pants right now that probably sure feel like they're getting their margin calls. I think they're going to have a lot of trouble on Monday, and I think that's going to cause the price to go up big time. But a big part of me also says the world might read this ruling in full and realize that they just need to resubmit shit and make a new settlement, and this thing gets approved, and they clack them together. So inevitably, we're going back to 1.5 billion. Inevitably, we're going to be worth $4 and something cents again. And the whole purpose for doing all of this is another dilution to fix the balance sheet. So yeah, I still think that's where this is going ultimately. I don't know what you do. Do you want to go for it on Monday morning and all week and go for a short squeeze? You might get it. You might get it just because the world doesn't know. The morning traders are going to start at 7 a.m. They might just drop this thing back down to 550 or 575. The late evening traders, or 9:30 a.m. late evening, 9:30 a.m. people get in there. They might want to drive it up like crazy, but be awfully curious as to why it fell. And maybe there'll be some more stories and talk coming out about it. How I know it's probably inevitable. I'm telling you, it looks like it's probably inevitable. 1.5 billion shares. The stock's not going to be worth 12 or 13 bucks. It probably is until they do this, but it's not. This is just a delay. This is just crap. I'm sorry, everybody. The whole world got so hot on fake news. These articles are just absolutely astounding. Judge denies AMC settlement on stock conversion. Shares surge. That's not what happened. Judge didn't deny it. Judge just said, I can't accept this settlement. Make me another settlement. And here's what I want. I want notice, and I want it to be reasonable. And AMC stock rises as judge blocks APE split. Not really what happened. AMC stock surges 60% of the judge puts brakes. That's more accurate. He puts the brakes on it, which means you could just put the gas pedal on later. So Market Watch was a little more truthful. They used the word speediness in another one. AMC stock surges 67%. It has nothing to do with Barbie and Oppenheimer. That one's true. AMC shares surge after judge blocks settlement for stock conversion plan. That's not what happened. AMC stock shorts after judge rules against APE conversion plan. That's not what happened. So, you guys, I don't know what to tell you. Man, it's just a shit. Pick one or the other, and you're gambling. There's no way to know how the world's going to feel about this tomorrow morning. I don't know. I would entertain the fact getting your investment out and gambling with the rest of it, maybe. Maybe that would be a good play. I'm not a professional. I'm not giving you advice. I'm not a lawyer or a professional financial advisor, but I would say get your profit out of this one and gamble with the rest, or get your very nice profit out of it, one or the other, or just gamble the whole thing. Depends on whatever you got in there. But AMC, everybody, that's the news, that's the story, that's the judge's ruling. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you on the next video. Please like the video and subscribe. Sorry for having trouble with so many big words. I'm not awake enough for that. Have a good afternoon. We'll catch you on the next video.